Psalm 27. I've squeezed blood out of the turnip here with verse 4. The one thing I ask of the Lord, the thing I seek most, is to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, delighting in the Lord's perfections and meditating in his temple. Then he goes on in verse 5 with an at least equally symbolic, maybe, if it's possible, more symbolic language, where he says, "For he will conceal me," he, God, will conceal me there in his presence, in the temple, in his house. He will conceal me there when trouble comes. That he will hide me in his sanctuary. This is not literal. And in fact, there's a part of me that when I read this, I think, really? Because it doesn't seem like that works in my life. That he conceals me there when trouble comes. Now, if, there's a lot of times it just feels like, trouble is that set of headlights coming right at me. It feels like I'm not hidden. I'm not concealed from trouble. It just always seems to find me. And let's be honest, David did not live a trouble-free life. He had many troubles. And in fact, many of his poems are about the fact that he was dealing with trouble. But symbolically, in an artistic sense, David could what David said about himself here, could that be true by extension for us, for me, that when I live, when I dwell in his presence, when I live in his house, when I contemplate his perfections, when I meditate in his temple. I left this out when I was talking about the temple. Today, if you've ever been to Jerusalem, you realize there's only virtually one part of Herod's temple that is even still left, and that's the Western Wall. So it's gone, and has been for more than 2,000 years now. Well, maybe not more yet, because it was destroyed in 70 A.D. Okay, well, so and for David, as I said, it didn't even exist when he wrote this poem. Today, though, where is God's temple? Well, you and I are God's temple. That's what the Apostle Paul writes. And God, chose and every day continues to choose to live in us. That he would want, his desire is that my body will be his temple. That's an interesting thought. I don't really know how to exactly exegete the idea that for he will conceal me there in his house, in the temple, in his presence. When trouble comes, he will hide me in his sanctuary. Do know this. I say I know this. I feel this to be true. We have no idea how much trouble would have come our way if God had not stepped in to hide us from it. I don't want to know. It'd be overwhelming. I do believe that whatever my current trouble is, this is me. I don't know if it's the way you are, but for me, whatever my current trouble is, it totally is my field of vision. Until I can find within my mind and heart and spirit and soul faith to trust that there is something beyond it, and that Romans 8:28 is actually true, that God is at work for good in my life, because he always is at work for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. When the trouble is here, I'm not good at quickly reminding myself he really does hide me in his sanctuary. He will place me out of reach on a high rock. Well, that's kind of military thinking there, ancient military thinking, where even today, though, high ground is the preferred place for encountering an enemy, where I've got the high ground, not him. For me, the challenge in this is putting my trust in God, that he is doing his work, that even when I feel totally exposed to the problem, totally on my own to deal with the problem, that trouble has come over me like a tidal wave, God is not absent. He's not sleeping. He's not looking the other way. He's here. Then verse 6, I would like for this to be my response to trouble, but it isn't very often. He says, then I will hold my head high above my enemies who surround me. At his sanctuary I will offer sacrifices with shouts of joy, singing and praising the Lord with music. I will hold my head high above my enemies who surround me. There are days when it feels like the best thing I can do is just keep my head and move my head down and move forward. Just, do you ever have those days? Usually that's when I have forgotten, or I don't know, sometimes ignored the fact that God is still, he is at work. He really is my hiding place, my shelter. He does put me in a place of safety, out of reach on a high rock. And when I can bear that in mind, then I can hold my head up high. It sounds at times and feels to me like a mind game. Almost like, you got troubles? Don't worry about it. You just hold your head up, right? Everything's going to be okay. I think I've shared this before. I don't know how they came up with this statistic, but I see it, in print, so it's got to be true. 80% of the things that I'm afraid of do not happen. And I'd say I, I don't know how to empirically verify that, but I have to say, well, yeah, that's probably true. Well, holding my head up high and telling myself, what trouble? It's good. God, everything's going to be okay. Except for that 20% when it wasn't okay. She died. He died. I prayed hard. The job ended. I got fired. What? It's going to be okay? Well, yes, it is going to be okay. And sometimes there's just this very thin line between denial and an appropriate view of the truth and reality that's based in the presence, the care, the goodness, the love, the nature of God. When I lose that in framing up my present current reality, that's when things get really bad for me, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. The picture David is drawing here is of a person who, it's not because trouble doesn't happen. It is because he trusts the fact that he is in God's hands. God is a good Father who delights in protecting and providing. I guess I'm telling you this because I need to hear it. I need to be reminded, probably daily, no, many times every day, that this is my God. This is the God who loves me, and the God I serve, not so that he will love me, but because he does love me. Well, then he says, at his sanctuary, and that would have been for David, that would have been the tabernacle, I will offer sacrifices with shouts of joy. This to me is a little bit of an oxymoron. Sacrifice. When I think about sacrifice, you cannot, David said it, I will not offer to my Lord, to my God, a sacrifice that cost me nothing. If it's not a sacrifice if it didn't cost me. That to me gives insight to our current world, where we don't have a physical altar where we place a physical slaughtered animal and offer it in flame to God. It's not available to us. But don't we have times in our life, probably daily, and in many days, many times a day, where we can offer a sacrifice? And he says, with shouts of joy. Again, I'm talking to myself here. You can listen in. This idea of offering a sacrifice to God with joy, I find it way too easy to offer God a sacrifice because I'm supposed to. Not any joy associated with it. Maybe today, maybe you need this too, as a reminder because of who he is and how he is, I can offer sacrifices to him with joy. Well, that's it. I've gone over time. I'll close and I'll see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.